last week, I guess, when the roster came out, you said you were going to be interested in seeing how players like, I think the example you used was like Claire Hutton, how close her gap is to Sam Coffey and so on and so forth. How do you measure those gaps at this camp? Like, is it like an eye test between you and your staff? Or like, what are some metrics that you're going to be using during this camp?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. I think seeing players perform in January is one thing, and that might be in how they apply tactical information and how quickly they can adapt that to their game, whether that's in possession or out of possession. You know, some players might be faster learners with those things, but that's one environment. The next is to see what it looks like in a game when you got all the stimulus and the pressure of the crowd, of a top opponent, all of those things. But the reality is we have top ability, that's clear, but we want to develop a combination of things: their personal resilience, which we do, and their learning mindset. So the combinations of those things will do one of two things. We give them the opportunity, and that opportunity will either tell us that they're ready now or they're ready later. And if they're ready later, is that an under-23 pathway starting from April? Or is it their player that we think that with maybe a couple more camps they'll be with that? And I've made it clear to the players representing this crest that any age group is significant. So the 23s programme isn't by any means a relegation to something, far from it. It's a development pathway that we feel has been absent for a group that qualify from under 20s and are not quite ready for the seniors. So this is a tournament setting that we want to create. We know that we want to recreate everything as if it was a World Cup or an Olympic, which we do, by the way, every camp. But to do it in a way where players are given the opportunity to play, for us to assess where they stack up against those areas I've described.
What does Jane Campbell have to do to really take hold of that position, the #1 spot?
Well, I think for all of the goalkeepers competing within that, they have to demonstrate they can make, you know, the important decisions under pressure. Again, both sides of the ball. Of course, the qualities you need to play in goal for this team mean that more often than not you've got to be absolutely ready to make a significant big save in every game. That's one thing. But two, the growing demands of the game mean that you are often a spare player in the team, and you've got to be good with your decision making and execution in the deepest spaces to help the team progress up the pitch. So, you know, Jane's experience amongst this current goalkeeping pool that's here, I think, is, you know, she's the most experienced. They have to take their opportunities. She's going to get the opportunity to play, as is Mandy, in this camp, and I think we will progress through this stage up until July, where we will give opportunities to the goalkeeping pool. And listen, Jane's impressed me from day one being in here, and I'm looking forward to seeing what steps she can take next, as I am both Mandy and Fallon.
With 16 of the 23 being NWSL players, how do you motivate them to compete as what is essentially the toughest season opener?
I mean, no one needs motivating to play for this. Let me tell you, every single one of us get out of bed every day honoured to rent this crest for the time we're here. And some have had, you know, tough pre-seasons already, so they are not conditioned in terms of games, and of course that in itself doesn't lend as the most favourable factor going into this. But like, we're not here to make excuses. I don't like to. I want them to just apply themselves every day, and as long as they attempt their best, that's all I really care about. And we're growing for, you know, for me, I want to arm our squad with the knowledge and the tools that are going to serve us well as we progress. There's going to be players that are going to play in this tournament that absolutely do not know you know, everything that's required at the top level in its entirety. But we have to have belief in them and give them the support to be able to be successful with that. So I'm very excited for that. And of course, it's great for players that whether it's their first opportunity or whether it's their 100th, every single player is competitive and wants to keep performing for this team. So it's exciting.
I have a question. Sam here, ASN Sports TV. My question is this. Being an English coach, coaching in the US soccer environment, what tactical discipline or what tactical identity you trying to establish with this US women national team?
Well, I mean, I've made no secret that my entire, you know, the vast majority of my early, you know, years as a coach has been in the US, so I understand the DNA of US soccer. I think what I've able to bring is experience in non-US competition. The Champions League taught me a lot as a coach. It really did. It taught me, wow, PSG might set up like that and Barcelona like that. And I think when you're faced with a diversity of opponent like that, it was great grounding for me to be able to come in and say, I get the US DNA. I will always build on this programme, but I want to sprinkle in some of the tactical adaptations that I think you need to have against opponents that know how to control football matches. And I feel that we've been able to do that. I feel like if you look at, I don't know, Japan in the Olympics, us versus Japan in the Olympics, to us versus Japan even 6 months, 12 months prior to that, in terms of we dominate the ball now. And I think that comes with structure, but most importantly, clarity in that structure to be able to know how to possess, to progress in a way that, listen, American players get sold short, in my opinion, internationally. These players are highly technical and they are highly tactical, but my job is to make sure I give them the clarity that's needed, and hopefully I'm doing that.
Speaking of the American identity, the national team has been on the receiving end of bad faith attacks, you know, at the World Cup.
On
22
what?
Bad faith attacks.
What does that mean?
Oh, let me finish.
Okay.
Oh.
So, of course, considering the political climate and what the team may potentially receive given that, how as a coach can you support the players if these things do kind of happen again?
I don't really understand the question.
Yeah, what do you mean bad faith attacks?
Given the political climate,
Yeah.
women's athletes,
Yeah.
women's national team
Mhm.
can be on the receiving end of things that are off the field, things that
Yeah.
may be have nothing to do with soccer.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
You know, I can't look. What I would say in the position that I am is I take, you know, everything I can in the most responsible and manageable way. I think what I can control is making sure I create a very safe and respectful and tolerant environment internally. I can't comment to things outside. What I know is we understand, you know, yeah, of course, there's different responsibilities we may have off of the field, but when it comes to what we do in-house, my job is to make sure I protect that, and I can't really comment on anything outside of it.
Anything else for Emma?
How much do you think
Go.
it can help your team moving forward to have these young women that haven't had this level of experience have it this week and in the next few days?
I think, you know, I sat with a leadership group this week to explain the importance of when, you know, we're in stages where we're just watching sort of our own personal growth, or we've got to get everything right within ourselves, that we're at a point now where we have to help bridge the gap to bring everybody to a much closer level, from, say, Lindsay Horan, Emily Sonnet, and all the way out. We have to keep bridging this gap, because so often we're always preparing for today instead of, look, I have to think for, you know, 1 year's time, 2 years' time, 3 years' time, always. And it's actually no different in any environment. But there's no point talking about the development of a programme without providing opportunities for people to do it. But with that comes, of course, the risk, and of course, it won't look polished in its entirety. But I trust the process, and I've been a coach for a long, long time to know that doing it this way will give us a much better chance down the road to compete at the top end when I know exactly what the top nations in the world are doing. And as I've said before, the biggest challenge we have had is that our programs, youth age group and under 23, has been at about 50% of the programming for, say, Germany and England and Spain. So we've got to close this gap to ensure that this program can stay at the top end.
Last one, go ahead.
When players are making the decision to go from the U.S. and play club abroad,
Yeah.
and they talk to you and ask you for advice, what are the things they're picking your brain on the most? Like, what do they want to know from you before they make that decision?
Well, I think for them, they do anything. They just, they want to get a sense from me if I know anything about any of the environments they're going to or what my thoughts are on it. And I'm sure the players will tell you this anyway. I'm always about, well, what's right for you? Where are you at? What are your needs? And I think it's great for the women's game that there are these opportunities for our players, but it's so deeply personal. Like for Yasmin Ryan, she's a player that absolutely wanted to play in the NWSL, and for someone like Jen and Uswnt, she's like, I've wanted to go abroad since I was 8. And my philosophy on this is, who am I to tell them they can and can't do things? Spend enough time as women being told enough of that, and if they can make a great living doing what they're doing and they're happy doing it, then I just want them to know they have my full support, nothing more.